And because we're always losing our cell phones, you know, someone should invent a phone that's attached to the wall so we don't lose it all the time.
Right.
How about like little kids that have the clips for their mittens? You should clip your phone to your body somehow.
Well, good morning, everyone. Are we ready to start?
Sorry, Myron, we were dilly-dallying.
No, that's great. No, that's why I'm asking. That's important. And if everyone's, I think, do we have everyone here?
Elizabeth dropped off.
Yeah, I can check in with her.
She was here.
Oh, okay.
She maybe doesn't have a landline.
Yeah, I was thinking.
Well,
She went
should
out to
we get
buy a
started?
phone.
Do we have enough people to get started?
Well, I think Elizabeth and Ella from MHP are going to be our presenters this morning. So we may, let's wait to see if we can get Elizabeth back on.
Okay.
Thank you, Myron.
Well, I'll go ahead and read the statements that we are required by statute to have when commissioners are at an open meeting. So I'll start off with that, and then hopefully someone will start.
So excuse me, Myron, are we live streaming now?
Yes.
We are, okay.
Yes, yeah, we started at 10. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yep, sure, okay. The following statements should be made at the beginning of any meeting that commissioners attend by telephone or by Zoom to ensure the record reflects the necessary information to support telephone or Zoom attendance or other virtual means. And this is not a meeting where we're going to make decisions to where we have roll call. This is a committee of the whole, but the commissioners are in attendance as well as some other staff. Number one, it has been determined that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent because of the COVID-19 pandemic and a related peacetime emergency declaration made by Governor Walz in accordance with Minnesota statutes, Chapter 12. Number two, we have ensured that all members of the body participating in the meeting, wherever their physical location, can hear one another and can hear all discussion and testimony offered at today's meeting. Number three, we have also ensured that members of the public present at the regular meeting location of the body can hear all discussion and testimony and all votes of the members of the body. We have urged that the public not to attend the meeting in person because of the COVID-19 pandemic and have ensured that members of the public can view and monitor the meeting remotely in real time by broadcasting the meeting on the Cook County website. Number four, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we have determined that it may be unfeasible for all our county auditor, Brady Powers, county attorney, Ollie Hicken, county administrator, James Yorkie, and members of the board commissioners to be physically present at the county board room at the Cook County Courthouse. We're taking no votes, but if we did, they would be by roll call. So with that, I'll turn the meeting. Let's see if we still have everyone. Or did we pick up the person we're waiting for? I think I see someone else. Welcome.
I think we're
James, any comments that you would like to make, or I'll turn it over to you at this time.
Perfect. Well, good morning, everybody. And I'm excited about this morning's presentation. We've got a couple of our new friends from the Minnesota Housing Partnership with us this morning to talk about housing redevelopment authorities. And this is a legal organizational framework that we could create to begin making some new progress on issues related to housing in Cook County. I think everybody on the call knows that this is an issue that comes up repeatedly in public discussions. Having adequate housing in the community is really essential for economic growth and development. It's something that we've been struggling with for a long time. And this may provide a new opportunity for us to begin making some progress on this. So with that very brief introduction, I would like to welcome Elizabeth Glidden and Ella Mitchell from the Minnesota Housing Partnership, and they're going to present some information, and then there will be an opportunity to discuss and ask questions afterward. So Elizabeth, you're on.
All right, thank you so much. And we hadn't talked about this before, but I think I'm sharing, you're not sharing, right? The presentation?
We can do it either way, whatever is easiest for you.
You know, I'm actually going to ask if you wouldn't mind sharing, and then I can just say forward screen. You might have seen, I think I have some unstable internet.
Okay.
And I've also joined this meeting by phone so that if something happens, I am on the phone as well. And Ella, of course, is my partner, and together we will make sure we get through everything. So James, I'll wait for you to go ahead and share screen. Is that all right?
I will do that. Give me one moment.
Thank you. This is our life now, right? Unstable internet.
Okay. Are we up? Can you all see that?
Yes, looks great.
Okay, perfect.
FYI, it's not quite full screen if that matters, or if that's the goal.
I think it's as full as I can make it. Is it legible? Can you see the text?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep,
All
it's
right.
good.
So again, my name is Elizabeth Glidden. I am the ship, and I also direct policy activities there. And I'm here today with Ella Mitchell, who is a community development officer, and we are just really pleased to be working together with Cook County on this initiative. Would you like to move slide forward?
I will try. Here.
All right, and this is just a snapshot of what we're hoping to review today with you. We can go ahead and move this forward. All right, so just a little bit of a grounding first about Minnesota Housing Partnership. We are a 30+ year nonprofit that works in the state of Minnesota. We were started in the state of Minnesota, and now our work has expanded beyond the state of Minnesota. We have 3 primary lines of work. One is we work on policy. Primarily, this is at the Minnesota State Legislature, but we also work a little bit on federal policy for housing, as well as some local issues. We produce original research on housing. We're one of the few organizations that has a statewide perspective that does this. And some of our more popular reports that are the state of housing, which includes files as well as legislative digital files. And we're going to showcase some of that information in today's presentation. Finally, and most importantly, we work directly with communities on technical assistance assignments of a very wide variety. And again, this work began in the state of Minnesota, it's grounded in the state of Minnesota, but now has expanded. Next slide. You able to move that forward, James?
I did. I think, oh, sorry. Are we there? Is that what you're needing?
Need the map, I think.
Okay.
Yes, are you able to move slide forward?
Oh,
Are we past the map then?
All right,
I'm sorry.
this is just a quick snapshot of.
Elizabeth, do you want the map or do you want the slide after that? Sorry.
Just been bumped off. I'm going to exit from this audio.
We can't hear you, Elizabeth.
Maybe Elizabeth, what you should try is using the.
Okay, this is Elizabeth.
Hi
Can you
there.
hear me?
We can hear you now, yes.
All right, I had to hit the *6 and I figured it out.
Okay, perfect.
So this is just a snapshot of our locations of where MHP has provided some technical assistance, including several assignments that have happened over the years in Cook County. Go ahead and move this forward. So MHP is here in response to a request for technical assistance from the Cook County Grand Marais EDA. Again, this is a program that we have that has served many communities across the state of Minnesota. In response to this request for technical assistance, we now have an agreement or memorandum of understanding with some focused areas of work, which are to explore a housing and redevelopment authority, or how to utilize those powers for Cook County Grand Marais, and also to identify some tools, policies, and programs to build and preserve housing. And these are the big buckets of work that we are moving forward on together with Cook County. Next slide. So now digging into more of the local picture and what we're here to work on. I just wanted to start by saying our understanding is that there is a very strong commitment to identifying housing solutions and working on housing issues within Cook County. And this is a really important foundation. It does not exist in all communities that there's this level of commitment to working on a particular priority. Next slide. This is a snapshot of some housing highlights or issues for the Arrowhead region. This is taken from a report that Minnesota Housing Partnership creates called the State of Housing, which I mentioned earlier. This report is about to be updated, so we will have new information that we can share in March of next year. But of note, and again, this is about the region, is that rental housing stock is at risk. Many of the rental housing units are aging and need investment, as well as needing more ways to have single and multi-family housing starts. Next slide. So this is a snapshot that shows what are essentially the market mismatch that we're seeing that is reflected all around the state of Minnesota, even though county to county that picture might look different. And as you can see here, if you look on both the renter households and owner households, we have rent increasing, and relative to that, income is decreasing. So we don't have a situation where income is matching up to the cost of housing. I will say for the owner households, what I think in part is reflected here, of course, is the significance of seasonal housing and how that housing cost is being impacted by the seasonal visitors. Next slide. So we're getting grounded now in some key definitions and facts about housing. A term that's used a lot is trying to understand what is affordable. And without talking about any particular type of housing, there is a common definition that is used in the housing world, which says that if you are paying more than 30% of your income in rent or housing cost, then you are considered cost burdened. Next slide. And this next slide is explaining the impact of what happens when you pay more than this estimate of 30% of your income for housing. This means that you may be hurting your household in that you are not then having enough income that you can spend on household necessities. And you're also hurting the general economy because you have less disposable income that you can spend on the things that essentially keep the economy going and the community going. Next slide. And again, I'm just having some, there we go. This is a slide that we use to talk about the importance of targeting solutions where they're needed the most. We know that in Minnesota, as in many other states, but in particular in Minnesota, we have past and present structural racism that has impacted how opportunities are available to all of our community members, and particularly people of color. Next slide. So one of the most popular terms that we often hear is a term called workforce housing. And here, just a note that there is no common definition for workforce housing, which is sort of kind of an interesting thing. Workforce housing is a term that sometimes is used to refer to a particular program, but often what happens is that a community may decide what are the highest needs for workforce housing or the priorities for what workforce housing may serve. Next slide. So here we're taking a look then at what is the picture for workers in Cook County, and just a couple caveats on this slide. The housing costs that are reflected in this slide are specific to Cook County, but because of how DEED compiles data, the jobs that are reflected in the top in demand jobs and fast growing jobs, these are regional data. And so in addition to looking at those particular jobs where you can see that we have a mismatch for many of those jobs between the income produced and the cost of housing, we have some additional top jobs for Cook County that we have highlighted what is that annual median income, and that's for food prep and servers, and then for housekeeping to kind of reflect the importance of hospitality industry. And both of those are ones that would kind of fall under that red line of what's the salary needed to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. Next slide. So moving on to then solutions that have been discussed in Cook County is our work to explore a housing and redevelopment authority, or how we can ensure that those powers are utilized in Cook County. And as you can see from here, we just wanted to highlight that HRAs are very common structures, including in some of the peer communities or area communities around Cook County. Next slide. Just a little grounding in what is an HRA, kind of similar to an EDA. It is an independent public entity that's established by and accountable to city or county government. It has certain programs and activities that are typical to an HRA, and it is a very common structure in the state of Minnesota, as you can see from that number of HRAs. Next slide. This is a select list of HRA powers that are commonly used as we try to look at what's the scope of authority and how that scope of authority can best be utilized to meet community needs in Cook County, should it choose to go this direction. And there is a more full list in state law, and but this is just to give you a snapshot of what are some common HRA powers. Next slide. One important part of an HRA is how you utilize certain financing and funding tools that are available. There is a levy authority, which is a little bit different from the levy authority of an EDA. There are special assessments, bonds, tax increment financing. These are some of the financing tools. It is also common that through an HRA, there would be application for funding that comes from state and federal sources. And I didn't put it on this slide, but it's also common that you would seek funds from private sources as well. And we've seen that. And as we get to a couple of examples, I'll kind of point out a couple of examples of that. Next slide. So some of the most common program organization, I think you might say, for HRAs. And not every HRA does every program area. So that is important to say as well, particularly based on the size of the HRA or the priorities of the HRA. You will find that that one or two programs is what the HRA may focus on instead of this whole array. But managing redevelopment activities, that is a major program area. Homeownership and rehab programs, I think of those as kind of falling in that area as well. Owning and managing public housing, and I actually want to amend this slide because it's not just public housing, which really refers to a certain type of housing that has funding from HUD and USDA, but it is not uncommon for HRAs to own and manage housing that may even be market rate or have different affordability terms than what we understand to be public housing. And a final major program area is administering rental assistance programs. Next slide. So we wanted to just have a little bit of a highlights of why an HRA and utilizing HRA powers can be important for a community and is part of this discussion in Cook County. And the bottom line on this slide is that we're seeing very common issues across the state of Minnesota. These issues may look different county to county and community to community, but for the most part, they hold true. And with the result being that the market is not solving for housing needs that serve the community. So again, seeing that mismatch between income and housing, seeing a lot of cost issues that are challenging community to community, and also seeing increased demand, whether that be unique demand for workforce, or sometimes it's because population is growing, and all across the state, reduced supply for a whole variety of reasons. Next slide. We've also had clear direction from the staff we have been working with that we are looking at an HRA that would produce housing solutions for all of Cook County. And again, this kind of going to why an HRA with the variety of tools that would be at its disposal or exercising those authorities would be important to serving these whole county housing needs. Next slide. These are some of the, I think, important considerations for how utilizing HRA authorities can be important to achieving housing goals. Having focus on housing through staff that has experience working on housing programs or can gain that experience. Being able to prioritize what the community determines are the housing needs that need first focus. This is another benefit of having your own entity. Leverage is a very important concept, which I kind of touched on a little bit in talking about the application that HRAs often make for funding from public and private sources, but we often hear from entities all across the state that having some leverage, meaning a little skin in the game, is exceptionally important to being competitive for public and private funds for that can support housing needs. And last, I'll say this is being able to focus not just on a priority project, but having an HRA put a long-term focus into place for working on housing goals that often do take multiple years to achieve. Next slide. We just wanted to feature some snapshots of HRAs that exist in other communities. City of Virginia, they have an HRA. They also have a separate EDA, just for note there. The Virginia HRA has worked on some development programs, including development of market rate housing. So I think that's of note. And in addition to that, they do manage some housing. They own some apartments and townhomes. Next slide. I don't know if I'm stuck. Has the slide moved?
It has, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm just stuck. So the next one is the Chisago County HRA EDA. As you can see from the name, this is actually a combined EDA HRA. In Chisago, their entity began as an HRA, and then they added the EDA powers. And they also own and have worked on a variety of development activities. They, in the past, they have kind of flipped their focus as a combined HRA EDA between years when they have had more of a focus on the economic development end of things. And according to their executive director, now they're shifting back to, with their board, directing them to have more of a focus on the housing and redevelopment activities. They're also looking at strategies other than owning and managing properties as a way to incentivize development, including creation of a local housing trust fund so that they can develop some gap financing, which is a common tool to help incentivize creation of single family and multifamily housing. Next slide. And James, let me know if the slide changed.
It did.
All right, and then this is the Southeastern Minnesota Multi-County HRA. We just put this in here as another example of another model, so you can see that there's a lot of variety in how you choose to exercise your authorities. SEMTRA, they include the counties of Goodhue, Winona, Wabasha, and they have started as an entity that worked on housing assistance programs, administering housing assistance programs, and managing public housing. But now they are turning to focus more and more on development activities as well. They have a local housing trust fund that they partnered with Goodhue County to set up. That is a trust fund that produces through the levy approximately $100,000 annually. And they really put those funds to good use, kind of using that leverage that I talked about earlier. And they have used those funds to create sort of a savings account to attract development activities. And they have also used it to incentivize home ownership programs and other emergency housing needs. Next slide. So just a little quick look at some nuts and bolts. There are certain activities that are set out in statute for establishing an HRA. For Cook County, this is a little bit different because you already have an EDA. So there are some decisions that will be made and recommendations, I think, coming forward back to the Cook County Board about what might be some recommendations on how would Cook County like to exercise its HRA authorities. but these are some of the basics. Next slide. I think it's important, again, just like the EDA, that the county or the county city retains oversight of an HRA. And again, these are activities that have some similarity to what happens with the EDA. Next slide. So here are some additional considerations, some areas that for exploration. One is what will be the desired interaction with Grand Marais, and because cities also have inherent HRA authority. And what are the decisions of Grand Marais? Do they remain similar to how the EDA is structured with the county and the city, or is there some difference? Are there any changes that might be recommended to board membership or retain existing structure, especially if the decision is to expand the ADA to include operationalizing the HRA powers? And I think very importantly is a consideration of what would be the focus of any HRA activities. Kind of what we have heard initially is that the greatest interest may be in development and redevelopment activities. And it's important to have that idea of what would be an initial focus, because there can be very different skill sets involved in different program activities, especially when you compare what does it take to manage and own property or administer housing assistance programs compared to working on development activities. Next slide. This is just a quick timeline of next steps. We will be presenting to the Grand Marais City Council, and then we will be working closely over the next few months with staff. And I know staff will be engaging as this happens with the Cook County Board and others to continue to investigate the questions identified and others that may come up, evaluate that feedback, and then present some recommended actions back to the county board.
And Elizabeth,
And with that,
if I could interject,
I think,
briefly.
yes, please.
I just wanted to mention too that I have reached out to Grand Portage. We're hoping to arrange a presentation to the Tribal Council on this as well.
Thank you. And so this timeline, as you can see, will continue to be updated with activities as they are set. And so with that, I think the presentation this is the end of the presentation, and time for questions or any additional reflections from staff.
And I'll just ask Mary, do you want to say anything about your participation in our conversation so far?
Yeah, so I think we can take down the slideshow.
Okay.
Thank you, James. I would appreciate the opportunity to let the people who are listening and the county board know that this was initiated, this exploration, if you will, was initiated by the EDA, and we're very grateful that Minnesota Housing Partnership approved our grant application, but it is thoroughly and completely a joint project of all the entities in the county, the city, the tribal council, the people of Grand Portage. And I just kind of had a little smile as I was listening to the presentation. I've seen it, we've been through it a couple times, and it came to me today that we should also present this to the EDA board. Even though they are already, in agreement that looking at this HRA is a good idea, they need to be seeing what everyone else is seeing. So our next meeting is January 12th at 4 p.m. And I think we should go ahead and put it on our agenda for that day so that they're in the loop with the rest of the groups. I'm very grateful for the positive reception that we've received from Rena and now James and Mike Roth at the city. And I'm looking forward to where this goes because I believe that it will bring additional resources to the community to help us address our housing needs. And as you saw the benefits there that Elizabeth shared with us, I really, truly think that it's another tool that we need in our toolbox to help us go forward. And that's what I have for now. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, do you want to entertain questions from the board members?
Sure. Yeah, I guess let's open it up to any commissioner that'd like to comment, or I can go by roll call just to keep it orderly. But if you'd, Commissioner, if you just state your name, I'll call on you, and we'll go around round robin, hopefully, to everyone. Yes, Commissioner Starley. Commissioner Starley, I think you're on mute.
I don't think to my computer and it just does it automatically. Okay, here we go. Elizabeth, in looking out to the future, what are your recommendations for appointing board members, and how many would be effective in this whole process of working on with the HRA?
So how many board members you have is governed by state law. This does go back to what is the recommendation of whether the best solution is to keep the EDA and then exercise HRA authority as part of that, which is sort of the indication we have heard first is sort of the desired outcome probably, but I think we still need to get some feedback, pros and cons from that. So there's some informed discussion of that. If you have the EDA board already, I mean, the county and the city have already established the structure for appointment. So you would need to decide, is that something to keep or change? Sometimes if you have an HRA, you want to ensure that you have board members that, if you have an activity such as owning housing, it is typical to have one of those board seats maybe include a resident of housing. That's not what I've heard is a desired activity right now, but maybe something in the future. The other thing we have heard is whether there may be a desire to, of those seats, ensure that at least one is reserved for tribal participation. I think that's another just discussion item.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Commissioner Mills, I'll just go to you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was about to raise my hand or unmute or something, but or both for that matter. It sounds like the HRA is, yeah, for sure something we need to pursue. And yeah, the real question in my mind is, well, first of all, I applaud the EDA for getting some housing built without an HRA. I think that's impressive in itself. But it seems, yeah, my knee jerk with the structure of it seems like it should be the authority should also be with the EDA and have it be an EDA HRA. My concern with that, though, and my reason for that is it's hard to find membership for boards. We have a small community and a very high participation rate, but still it is challenging to fill the seats that we do have open, whether it be for the library board or the EDA or the local mental health advisory council, or you name it. It's always a challenge keeping our membership up. And so that seems like a pretty strong reason. My concern, however, is that the focus is a little different with EDA and an HRA. However, I think at this point in time, the EDA has very clearly pointed out that the biggest economic hindrance is housing, and so to have the EDA's focus on that does not seem like much of a conflict. It's just a down the road sort of thing. But I do like the example of Chisago County where they kind of pivot back and forth between HRA, EDA priorities, and so that seems like a good way to go. I really do want to emphasize partnership with Grand Portage because conversations with Chairman DeShaw in the past have led me to believe that housing is a huge issue up there, more so even in the rest of the county. So it seems like a really obvious next step as far as where to focus on housing. But of course, that's to be determined. But yeah, those are all my thoughts right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Mills. Commissioner Dukirk, you've been around for quite a while. I mean that in a positive way. And what are your thoughts, questions?
As the one that sits on the EDA board, I have no questions or no concerns. It'll all move smoothly.
Great. I would like to just comment, I'm of course leaving, but in my observation over the 4 years and even previously being involved in the community and some nonprofits, the market hasn't worked very well for this in our county or other counties. I think the EDA has shown us a good start of what can be done with the one roof housing, the Lutzen workforce housing, the commendable job seeking funds from RRRB and so forth. But I think by going to HRA, we can broaden the scope of access to funds through deed, and I think add some substance, more substance to the great work that's been done by EDA. And they are so closely tied together, especially in Cook County. I mean, it's maybe as other places as well, but we need workers for our economy. We really do. Far more than I think maybe some other tourist counties have that need too, but we definitely do it with our tourist season and so forth. And hopefully this could even add to having more, sustainable jobs as well. It's not just the seasonal jobs. So yeah, I would really support enthusiastically in my absence on the sidelines, any work that could be done in this area because it's really needed. And I think it does tie to the racist issues and as well as discriminatory issues towards certain people. And I think, as has been mentioned, working with Grand Portage is going to be a very important aspect of this as well. Yeah. Okay, any other questions or comments from anyone? Elizabeth or any others in closing, or James?
Commissioner Mills.
Have we, I guess it's up to you whether we move on, or it's certainly, it's fine to present any other information at this time.
Commissioner Mills had his hand up.
Oh, I can't see him, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, James. Yeah, the only other thought that was rolling around in my head was just the slide that said that the city has inherent HRA authority. I did not know that, and I guess the city probably knows that now, but I had sat on the city council, and I guess there's some confusion there. So I think it'll be great for the city council to get this presentation, but the scope of Grand Marais or the size of Grand Marais and just their budget, I think, is prohibitive with doing something alone. So I think our partnership again, is going to be really important for everybody. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, I can speak to Dave's comment about that. So the EDA was created by special legislation in 1988. And after that legislation was passed by the state, the city passed a resolution that granted EDA authority to the new EDA, the Joint Powers EDA, but it did not pass HRA authority to the new EDA. So it can do that. It just hasn't done that yet. So that's where we stand with that, Commissioner Mills.
Okay, thank you, Mary.
And I have another question or just thought. I noticed on the one of the slides it has both the Duluth HRA as well as the St. Louis County HRA, and so that's an example of where both the county and the city have their own HRA. I'd be surprised if that's a situation that would work well here, but it is. I mean, when we're talking about affordable housing, my understanding is that it makes the most sense to build in Grand Marais because that's the most affordable way to do it. I just don't know. There's lots of ins and outs, but I want to make sure that the entire. I mean, I think we should have a partnership with the city and just maybe through the EDA, but I want to make sure the entire county, including Grand Portage and say the Gunflint Trail, if they need workforce housing up there, or the West End, just everyone is going to be seeing the benefits of this kind of partnership, despite maybe the cost effectiveness of Grand Marais.
Yes, Commissioner Mills, you're exactly right. And from my chair, where I'm sitting, you have articulated exactly my vision of how this is going to work. It's going to be for the whole county. And at this point in time, I believe, if everyone agrees, after we do this round of informational presentations, I believe that we should pursue this as an addition to the EDA, and that the consideration to make it really successful is going to be that we should probably consider adding staff. Because we can't stop all the other, there's so much good stuff going on in Cook County right now. You guys are going to be amazed when we come busting out of the gate after COVID. There's a lot of good stuff that's going to come. And in order to keep all the balls rolling, it might take more than one person. And so I just want to put that on the table, as that's my opinion about things today. It could evolve to a different place, but that's where I'm at with all of this right now. So thank you for your comments, Commissioner Mills.
Okay, yes, I agree with you, Mary. I think that would be part of it, and a good part of the rationale for expanding a little more formally the scope and authority, and definitely the resource allocations. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, I'll just offer that as we move forward with these informational presentations to the city, to the EDA and Grand Portage, I'll be coming back to you all with updates on how those conversations are going. And once we have those parties engaged, then I think we can move on with the discussion of how to bring this together. So.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Mills.
I guess I was just going to ask Elizabeth and Ella if moving forward, if there's anything that we should be wary of. Are there any hazards to keep an eye on? Any concerns? Whatever we do, don't do that sort of thing.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. This is Elizabeth. I think, well, that's a good way to frame it. What do we want to watch out for? I think we've been looking at this just to make sure we're presenting a full array of perspectives so that you kind of have eyes wide open in what may be advantages or disadvantages of any particular decision. I don't think we're seeing any unique hazard. It's just making sure we've got a full set of information in front of you, that you have kind of all the proper steps in front of you, and you're kind of eyes wide open. I think the big one is one that you identified and that staff had discussed with us, which is, the positives of keeping the EDA and expanding it to the HRA. And there's some very particular things there that are important, including being able to utilize the existing board to cover the HRA. But then the caution on the other side is, how do you ensure that you retain enough of a focus on your housing objectives, knowing that there's a pretty full plate of economic development activity? So again, that's not like a hazard. It's just, how do we make sure what we're doing fits what Cook County is saying is the best model for Cook County?
So we have to keep our eye on the ball, which that goes without saying there. Well, yeah, and I guess it also kind of leads in the presentation, and it was an excellent presentation, so thank you, by the way. But it went over the benefits, but I didn't see any risks. It's primarily a financial risk, that's what we'd be putting out there, would be monies. I don't see other risks per se, or am I missing something?
I think we are going to have some peer community conversations, and that might be a good question to pose. And I apologize, I think I spoke over Mary.
No, not at all. Not at all. But I think you're right on there, Elizabeth, to bring that question to the panel that we're going to meet with. Like, tell us something where you learned from a mistake so we don't repeat the mistake. That'd be awesome.
Okay. Any other comments? Well, thank you, Elizabeth, for your presentation, and Ella for joining us. If you do not have anything in closing, we will sign off to another topic. And thanks again for joining us. Yes, Commissioner Mills.
Sorry again. I guess I was hoping for just a short update from Mary on our housing situation. I don't know that the full board is up to speed on everything that's gone on as far as the housing sales, and it'll just be really good to get an update there.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you
Mary?
again, Commissioner Mills. So One Roof did build 10 single-family homes at Nordic Star in Grand Marais, and all of those homes have been sold. I don't know, it's hard to keep track of time anymore, but it's been quite some time since the last house was sold. It's great. You can drive down the street there and see swing sets and trampolines and bicycles, and it's just so rewarding to know that there are 10 families that have homes now in that little community there. And there's room for expansion. We're going to be meeting with One Roof after the first of the year. I don't think they're planning to build anything in 21, but they're starting to sharpen their pencils and look at what might be able to happen in 22 for more construction. And then in Lutzen, we have the 16 apartment units, which are fully rented and occupied, and same thing there. They own more land and there's room for more development, and they're just doing an internal assessment. In addition to all the other work that they're doing, they're building a apartment building in Duluth right now that has like 70 units or something. It's a big project. So more coming. I'm also working on a couple of other projects that, as I referenced earlier, we're getting some things ready. There might be some construction coming later in 21, in the later part of the year, or in 22, but it's too soon to say very much about those things yet, although I can tell you that there are other developers apart from One Roof who are looking at building workforce housing in conjunction with other projects. So we're hard at it, but as you all know, it's a very challenging work, and we're grateful for your support. We couldn't do what we've done without the county and the city behind us, and I'm looking forward to the continuation of that good work.
Are there any? Thank you, Mary. I'm looking forward to it as well. Are you aware, I guess, Elizabeth or Ella and Mary or everybody, of housing partnerships with school districts or hospital districts? My understanding is in Proctor, they had a program in the school where they would build a house and sell it, and the proceeds would go to the school to help fund the program. The students would gain experience constructing homes and what's all involved there, and then the community, of course, has another house in the housing pool. Didn't know if that kind of thing is real unusual or something we could set our eyes on as well, or what?
This is Elizabeth. I have not heard of that kind of partnership before, but we can ask if there are other examples than Proctor. It sounds like that community had a particular relationship and they figured out a way to make a very creative project. Ella, I don't know if you've heard of those kinds of unique partnerships, other examples.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I know that, that's definitely within the realm of possibility. And there's a lot of opportunities for public-private partnerships in housing and employers and sponsoring housing and being part of that as well is definitely something we've seen in other areas of Minnesota. So I think it's definitely a possibility.
We did have some conversation a couple years ago when North House built that little tiny house, the Mark Hansen little tiny house that was built on campus there, about a partnership that could exist with the North House and the, whatever do they call it now, the shop class at the high school, the kind of thing that you're talking about there, David, where the kids would have an opportunity to learn some skills and the community would get a house, and whether or not that precise tiny house is the thing that we need or if we need something different. I think it's a great opportunity, and it only makes sense to me that we put that in our basket of things to look at, for sure.
Okay.
Keep those creative ideas coming.
Yes, I think I do recall that too, Mary, and I think the school district at the time just couldn't commit to it for some reasons.
Yeah, we didn't get very far with it. It was a concept that, it never got off the ground, but it's certainly, I'm glad for the reminder that we should.
Yeah, and I think it was all, well, I don't know, but I suspect that it was all within the district in Proctor. I don't know that there was a partnership with, say, the HRA or whomever, but going forward for our community, I think it could be a really good opportunity to have a partnership that could, we are going to need more staff to handle this, and I think that's one of the burdens of that kind of thing is being a contractor and a teacher and managing a classroom on the job site. That's no small task. So, but yeah, I'll certainly keep creativity coming.
And
Okay.
one of the ways that I see that as potentially going forward is, as in everywhere in the country right now, we have a number of people that are nearing the age of retirement, and maybe they don't want to pick up the hammer every day, but they could be excellent teachers for the next generation of builders. So we might be well primed for this kind of a partnership.
Okay, anything else? Would any of the commissioners and other staff want to take a little break, or should we keep going? Really open to have a break myself. Should we just take?
I'd like us to keep going. I have another meeting.
Okay, very good. Then
And
we will.
if I may just quickly, thank you very much for having us at your meeting today. I think Elizabeth and Ella and I will probably slip off the screen.
Thank you, Mary,
Thank
for
you.
all you've done.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
all.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you so much.
Okay, James, we'll go into strategic planning and I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, very good. Well, I'm not sure how long this is going to take this morning, Commissioner Dukirk. I understand that you have other things to move on to, so I won't take too much time. But I do want to kind of reorient all of us to the issue of strategic planning. You may recall that there was a process back in 2017 to begin the development of a strategic plan. And thankfully, all the information that was developed during that time, it was a very robust process from what I can see. Thankfully, all the notes from that process are still available. And so I've been looking through those. And I guess I would just offer a few thoughts and really to start the conversation. I think probably the commissioners have an understanding of why we would do this, but for anybody else who may be tuning in from the community, why do we need a strategic plan? Why, what's the benefit of it? And I think and you could ask that question because frankly, I think the organization right now is in a really good place. The departments are operating at a high level. I think we're providing great services to the community that are needed. And so you could say, well, things are okay. So why do we need a plan? And I think the answer to that is that the process itself is simply a benefit because it really focuses on where are we trying to go? And, we probably all have our own thoughts about that, about what county government is intended to serve, what kinds of programs we should be operating. But the process of developing a strategic plan is really about asking those questions intentionally and trying to identify a vision for where we want to go. The topic we just talked about, housing, is really key to the future of this whole community. And so a strategic planning process takes an issue like that and really examines what county government is currently doing to work on the issue of housing. Are we applying our resources effectively to address that need? And what do we want our work to result in, say, 5 years from now? And that's really the importance of strategic planning. It's stepping back to look at where we want to go and then making sure that we establish a set of strategies and goals and objectives that enable us to move in that direction. And it also helps establish measurable targets that we can achieve along the way to make sure that we're making progress toward our strategic plan. And so that's really just in a very brief summary, that's kind of why we are having this conversation and why we need to be focusing some time and effort on developing a strategic plan. What really excites me is that the conversations, bringing people into the discussions about where we want to go. And again, a lot of that work has already been done. And I want to just briefly, if I can, hang on just a moment. I do have some slides that are from the last discussions that we had about this in 2017 and 2018. And I'm going to share this real quickly. So Okay, can you all see that?
Yes.
And this is just a very short series of slides, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time with them. I wanted to, let's see here. Okay, there we go. So one thing, and I'm glad Rena is on the video today, because I'd like her to comment on this as we go through it, because she was very much in a leadership role in convening the process the last time around. But one thing that I think I would like some feedback on, and also recognizing that, you know, come January, we're going to have 2 new board members seated, and then we have the special election in February, so we'll have another a 5th member, a full complement of members at that point. And so I'm not asking for anything from you today that would preempt their ability to kind of shape the direction of this. But I would like some feedback today on kind of what you all see as the scope of this effort. From what Rena tells me, the last time around, there was some question as to whether this process was intended to focus just on sort of county government as an organization, or whether it was intended to focus more broadly on the development of the county as a geographic area. And those are 2 different perspectives and really require engagement from different groups. And so I think in terms of the mission, or in terms of what the vision was, I think the conversations around that topic were kind of impeded a little bit by a lack of consensus about what the scope should be. And so that's something that I think we need to consider. Let's see, Rena, do you want to add anything to that at this point?
No, I think you represented that really well. Scope is kind of always the issue. So, you know, you have to kind of know what your target is. And I think there was a lot of, you know, part of it, I think, is this really the first time the county was undertaking a strategic plan. Mm-hmm. So there's a learning curve there, and a need to define a starting point that hadn't been defined before. So I think that's a process. Mm-hmm. And, you know, here we are still in the process. So that's okay.
Yep. And so I mentioned the documentation that we have from the process that was undertaken in 2017. We've got lots of really great discussions about all of these issues. And Rena and Valerie led a process to identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, or what they call a SWOT analysis. Basically just looking at where the organization is currently positioned in terms of opportunities and challenges to figure out where are opportunities for building things up, and how do our current assets and our current challenges inform our ability to carry out whatever our mission is and what vision we're trying to achieve. Part of that is identifying organizational values, and this is an example of what staff and department leaders came up with last time. And I think these are really great values. I think we really need to look at building on the work that's been done to date, because I really don't, in looking through the notes that I've seen, I think it's really solid work. And I don't think there's really any need to go back and start from square one. In terms of the challenges that we're facing as an organization and a community, I don't think a lot has changed. Certainly there was no pandemic going on in 2017. And I think the changes that has brought in terms of the way we work invite a new discussion on that. But I think the other challenges that we're facing have been around for a while. So I'm suggesting that moving forward, we build on the work that's been done to date and maybe do a little bit of updating in regard to the things that have changed in regard to the pandemic, its impacts on the economy, what the outlook is economically for the next 5 years, and kind of build on that. The other thing that I wanted to direct your attention to is that the process last time identified some pillars of basically areas that we wanted to focus on. And you see those here. There are 5 pillars, and those are communication, service delivery, operations, innovation, and workforce. And in thinking about the organization and a framework for measuring our progress toward whatever goals we decide to set, I think these are all really key issues. I don't see anything that's really missing here. And so I just want to suggest to you that, in terms of how I'm looking at this work over the next year, that it's really a process of building on what's already been done, refreshing it a little bit and adding new information where it's appropriate to do so. But today I'm really just asking for your feedback on what you would like to see us end up with. I'm seeing this as being a year-long process, probably. I know the last time that we did this, we had Ryan Erdman from AMC come to participate in some of our discussions and provide some leadership in the process. And I have followed up with Ryan, and he and I are going to be speaking tomorrow about this. You can invest a lot of time and effort in developing a strategic plan. And I think one question I have is, do we want to engage help from AMC or an outside consultant to help? I feel like we do have in-house expertise that is probably sufficient to help us take the next steps. But it really depends on what the board wants in terms of the scope of this plan. And so today I'm just asking for a little bit of guidance on how you'd like to see this move forward and how I can best make sure that we're taking steps to get a plan completed within the next year. The other thing I want to mention is that back in June, the Budget Advisory Committee identified the completion of a strategic plan as an important element in making sure that we are budgeting appropriately to meet community needs. So that's another reason why this work is important. And I'll just pause there to entertain comments.
Okay, well, thank you. I think you laid out a good summary, and definitely a lot of great work has been done. And it's worth continuing, and really, I, as commissioner, really appreciate your emphasis on process, because I think that's the real benefit of this. Mm-hmm. So any other questions or comments? I'll just start with Commissioner Dukirk.
Yeah, I think leaving it up to the next board to decide how they want to move forward is a good plan. And if you bring AMC in, I believe that Heather Bandine came up with Ryan Erdman, and they did it kind of together for some work with us. And so if we can get that team up, that would be great.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Storley?
Thank you, Chairman Bershheim. And thank you, James, for bringing this up to our attention again. I think we have some time to work on it because it's through or up to 2022. I would like to have input from Commissioner Dukirk and Bershheim before they leave, if they want to just send to you, James, some of their thoughts, because we were all part of the team that worked on this. And so I would like their input because I think that would be important for our bases, and then for the new team when they're coming on board beginning of next year, to take what we've done And as you say, just work on it, build on what we've already done, updating, and see where we need help in terms of bringing Ryan or Heather in on the team effort, and just work on good things that need updating.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Starlick. Commissioner Mills.
Yeah, it's thank you all for working on this in the past, and especially Rena for leading the charge in going through this process. And yeah, I think James's assessment of being very solid work and just something to build off of is very accurate, and I'm happy to keep moving forward there. The whole scope issue is really interesting. My initial thought is, well, I guess my initial thought was it should be the county geographic, and then I thought, well, no, our focus really should be on our organization and getting that giving that a better vision. And then I just go back and forth, I guess, between like who else is going to do a geographic county-wide strategic plan. But yeah, we're not. I mean, we are in an emergency, but what I was going to say is we're not in a situation where we need to give ourselves oxygen first necessarily. But I do think there is a lot of value in focusing on the county organization first, and then being in a better place to be able to focus on the geographic. So I'm torn. I'm going back and forth, and I really look forward to getting input from the new board and seeing where things should go. But I'm very grateful for the work that's already been done, and it is right on target in my mind.
Okay.
Commissioner Mills, if I could add on to that, I similarly go back and forth because, you know, the organization exists to serve residents, and the residents are everywhere in the county. And so it's kind of when we think about how would this process look, and how would the plan be focused? It's kind of hard to separate those two, in my mind, at least. It feels like, you know, if we're going to develop a plan, I feel like we need to have really good engagement from the community, because, you know, we may have our own ideas about how the organization can best serve residents, but they may have completely different perspectives. And so I always err on the side of trying to be as inclusive as possible. I also recognize that doing so can be complicated and messy and very time consuming. And so in thinking about how we move forward on this, I'm just, you know, any feedback that I can get from you all, and certainly from the incoming board members, on how we do that kind of engagement is going to be really helpful.
Rena?
So if I could, I think it's always important when you're setting goals to set goals that you have some control over. Mm-hmm. So if you throw your net really wide, and make these broad-based goals, but you don't really have any authority over those things, it becomes very hard to make progress. And I guess I would separate out that scope question and engagement, because certainly engagement from the community about what they would like to see from their county government, what things they would like us to focus on, what new services they might like to see, where, you know, how they would like to interact with their county government. That kind of community engagement can be very helpful in us setting goals. If we set goals that are more esoteric, or more, you know, like providing all kinds of housing opportunities in the county, we may not have a lot of control over that. It might not be an achievable goal. So I just think, you know, you kind of have to find that balance between engagement and what you're really actually trying to improve. Yeah. It's just kind of my input on that.
And I agree with that. I mean, I think, you know, if we have an engagement process with county residents, there may be suggestions that, well, the county should do X, Y, and Z that we currently don't do. And it always comes back to resource constraints, right? And you're exactly right, Rena. We need to make sure that this plan reflects goals and objectives that we do have control over and that we have responsibility for, and that doesn't set us up to fail. So I think that's right. And I think I think we can achieve that if we communicate effectively in the engagement process about what we're seeking and what we ultimately need the plan to include. I wouldn't encourage us to make promises that we can't keep or set goals that we can't really manage.
Whereas I loved the last slide, I was wondering if we could stop the screen share so that all of our faces are. I don't know if the conversation is going to continue though. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Yeah, and I think just my last thought is we always have to look at what are our statutory responsibilities, and keep that in mind as well. Yeah, it's a matter of resource allocation and definitely engagement, and that hopefully will be what that really can come after what's been done now. I think quite logically, to the extent that you would want to pursue those things with the county in general. But I think it's great work that's been done. It looks good on paper, and I think it had a great process, so that makes it quite more likely, I guess, to be functional. Any other questions or comments? Okay, well then I think we'll just adjourn this meeting and wish everyone to have a good day. And thanks so much for all your work on this, James and Rena. And this is our last committee of the whole, one more last one for Heidi and I. And so it's been a good process, the committee of the whole. It's been a very good process from my perspective.
Yeah, Myron, we got a joint powers tonight, so we just get all sorts of each other
Right,
today.
yeah. Yeah, it's been a whole month. I've got about 25 meetings this month, and it's been a lot of goodbyes. But it's all good. It's all good to say goodbye to.